The bank manager's face turned white as chalk. His hands were shaking. Security guards rushed toward me like I had just robbed the place. And all I did was hand over my dead father's old, worn bank card. The card I found in a shoebox. The card from a man who spent his whole life covered in engine grease, barely making rent. "Mrs. Chen," the manager whispered, "please come with me, immediately." That was the moment everything I thought I knew about my life turned out to be a lie. Before I tell you how a simple piece of plastic changed everything, I want to ask you something. If this story touches your heart, please subscribe to my channel and follow my journey to the very end. And leave a comment telling me what city you are watching from. I want to see just how far my story can travel. Now let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Margaret Chen. Everyone calls me Maggie. And 8 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I married Derek Morrison. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me start with the day my world collapsed. October 15th, my father's birthday. He had been gone for 7 years by then, but I still visited his grave every year on this day. I brought yellow roses because they were his favorite. I sat on the cold ground and told him about my life, the good parts. I never told him about the loneliness, the cruel words, the way my husband looked at me sometimes like I was furniture he had grown tired of. I could not bear to worry him even in death. That afternoon it started raining, hard. The kind of Boston rain that soaks through your coat in seconds. I had planned to have lunch with my mother-in-law Victoria at her country club, another one of her charity committee meetings where she paraded me around like a trained poodle. But I was tired of smiling when I did not feel like smiling, tired of pretending everything was fine when it was not. So I decided to go home instead. Derek was supposed to be in New York, a business conference, he said. He had left 2 days earlier with a kiss on my cheek and a promise to bring me something nice. Looking back now, I realize he never did bring me anything nice, not once in 8 years. His car was in the driveway. My first thought was that he had come home early to surprise me, that maybe, just maybe, he had remembered what day it was, that he knew how much I missed my father and wanted to be there for me. I was such a fool. I opened the front door quietly. I wanted to surprise him back. The house was silent, except for something. A sound, coming from upstairs, from our bedroom. My legs moved on their own, up the stairs, down the hallway. Each step felt like walking through wet concrete. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. The bedroom door was open. I will never forget what I saw. My husband, in our bed, with a woman half my age. Her blonde hair was spread across my pillow, the silk pillowcase I had picked out for our anniversary last year. Her red fingernails were digging into his back while she made sounds that I will not describe. For a moment I forgot how to breathe, how to think, how to do anything except stand there and watch my entire marriage burn to ashes. Derek saw me first, and here is the thing that shattered me completely. He did not look guilty. He did not look ashamed. He did not even look surprised. He looked annoyed. "Maggie, you are supposed to be with my mother." Those were his first words. Not, "I am sorry." Not, "This is not what it looks like." Not even, "Get out." Just cold, flat irritation, like I was the one who had done something wrong, like I was the inconvenience. The woman scrambled to cover herself with my sheets, my wedding gift sheets. The ones with the tiny embroidered flowers that my father had helped me pick out because he said they reminded him of the wildflowers that grew in his mother's garden back in San Francisco. "Derek, you said she would not be here." I recognized her voice, high and whiny, Brittany, his new secretary, the one he had hired 6 months ago, the one he said was barely competent but came highly recommended. Suddenly, so many things made sense. The late nights at the office, the business trips that seemed to happen every other week, the way he smiled at his phone sometimes when he thought I was not looking. "Get out!" My voice did not sound like my own. It was too calm, too steady, like someone else was speaking through me. Derek laughed, actually laughed, like I had just told him a joke. "Get out, Maggie, sweetheart, in case you have forgotten this is my house. Bought with my money. Everything you have, everything you are, belongs to me." He climbed out of bed like nothing was wrong. Like I had not just caught him betraying everything we had built together. He walked toward me with that confident stride that used to make my heart flutter. Now it made my stomach turn. You know what? This is actually perfect timing. I was going to wait until after the holidays to tell you, but since you are here, I want a divorce. The word hit me like a physical blow. Divorce. After 8 years. After everything I had given up for him. Derek, please. Can we just talk about this? Whatever is wrong, we can fix it. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. There is nothing to work through. His voice was as cold as January ice. I am done, Maggie. Done pretending. Done settling. Brittany makes me happy. You make me feel like I am married to my grandmother. Brittany giggled from the bed. Actually giggled. Like this was all a big joke. Like my entire life falling apart was entertainment. Your grandmother was a lovely woman, I whispered. It was a stupid thing to say, but it was all I could manage. My grandmother was boring, Derek said. Just like you. Now, if you will excuse me, I have some calls to make. He picked up his phone and started dialing. Dismissed. Just like that. 8 years of marriage, and he dismissed me like a maid who had overstepped her bounds. Who are you calling? My lawyer and my mother. She will be thrilled. Victoria. Of course, she had never liked me, never thought I was good enough for her precious son. From the very beginning, she had made it clear that I was beneath the Morrison family, a mechanic's daughter, a nobody from the wrong side of the tracks. Derek, please, can we at least talk privately without... I gestured toward Brittany, who was now wrapped in my robe. My robe. The silk one my father gave me for Christmas the year before he died. Anything you want to say to me, you can say in front of Brittany. She is going to be my wife. She might as well get used to your drama. His wife. The words felt like knives in my chest. How long what? How long have you been with her? Derek shrugged. A year, maybe longer. Does it matter? A year. A whole year of lies. A whole year of him coming home to me, sleeping in our bed, eating dinners I cooked while carrying on with another woman. A whole year of me thinking everything was fine while my marriage was already dead. Why did you even stay with me if you did not want me anymore? Because it was convenient. Because divorce is messy. Because... He paused, looking at me with something that might have been pity or contempt. It was hard to tell the difference. Because I thought your father might have left you something. Mother was so sure there was money somewhere. But 7 years and nothing. You really are as worthless as you look. My father. He was bringing my father into this. My father was a good man. He worked hard his whole life. Your father was a grease monkey who died in a garage. He left you nothing because he had nothing, just like you have nothing, just like you are nothing. That was the moment something broke inside me. Not my heart. That had already shattered. Something deeper. Something that had been holding me together through years of small cruelties and casual dismissals. I want to get my things. You have 1 hour, and do not touch anything valuable. The jewelry, the artwork, the furniture that all stays. You can take your clothes and whatever personal junk you brought into this marriage, which, let us be honest, was not much. I turned and walked out of the bedroom. Behind me, I heard Brittany's voice, sweet and poisonous. She is taking it better than I expected. She does not have a choice, Derek replied. She has nowhere else to go. They were wrong about that, but I did not know it yet. None of us did. 1 hour. 1 hour to pack up 8 years of my life. I moved through the house like a ghost, opening drawers, filling suitcases, trying not to think about all the memories attached to every room. The kitchen where I had cooked thousands of meals, the living room where we had spent Christmas mornings, the garden I had planted and tended with my own hands. None of it was mine anymore. Maybe none of it had ever been mine. I was carrying a box down the stairs when Victoria arrived. She swept through the front door like a queen entering conquered territory. Perfectly styled silver hair, designer suit, diamonds at her ears and throat. She looked at me the way you might look at something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of your shoe. Well, well, I always knew this day would come. Victoria, I do not want any trouble. I am just getting my things. Your things, she laughed. That cold, brittle laugh I had heard 1,000 times at dinner parties. The laugh that said she was better than everyone else and wanted to make sure they knew it. What things you came into this family with nothing but a cheap dress and a dead father. You are leaving the same way. I gave 8 years to your son, 8 years of my life. And what a waste those years were, for all of us. She stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming, expensive, suffocating. I told Derek from the beginning that you were not good enough, a mechanic's daughter. Absolutely no breeding, no connections, no money, but he insisted, said he was in love. She spat the word like it was something dirty. I loved him. Love. Victoria's eyes were hard as diamonds. Love is for fairy tales, dear. Marriage is a business arrangement, and you were a bad investment. Derek appeared at the top of the stairs, Brittany hanging on his arm. She had put on clothes at least. One of my dresses, a blue silk that Derek had bought me for our 3rd anniversary. Mother, please do not upset yourself. Maggie was just leaving. Were you not, Maggie? I looked up at them. My husband and his mistress, standing in my house, wearing my clothes, looking down at me like I was trash being taken out. I need a few more minutes. There are things in the closet. 5 minutes, Derek said. Then I want you gone. I went back upstairs, into the bedroom. I could not look at the bed, could not look at the sheets that would need to be burned. I went straight to the closet to the very back where I kept a small cardboard box. My father's things. After he died, I had saved what little he left behind. His watch broken, the hands frozen at 3:47. The exact moment his heart stopped. His wallet worn smooth from decades of use, empty except for a faded photo of me as a child. A few tools from his shop, a yellowed envelope of photographs, and at the very bottom, something I had never really looked at. Something I had almost forgotten existed. A bank card. I held it up to the light. It was old, scratched, the letters nearly worn away. First Harbor Bank was embossed on the front. My father's name was barely visible. Henry Chen. First Harbor Bank, I knew that name, one of the oldest and most prestigious banks in Boston, the kind of bank that did not deal with people like my father, the kind of bank where you needed $1 million just to open an account. So why did he have this card? I tucked it into my pocket without thinking. Whatever it was the last connection I had to him. I was not leaving it behind. Time is up. Derek's voice echoed through the house. I grabbed my box and my suitcases and walked downstairs for the last time. Victoria was waiting by the door, arms crossed, satisfaction oozing from every pore. I hope you understand now, Margaret. People like you do not belong with people like us. You never did. I stopped in front of her. This woman who had made my life miserable for 8 years, who had criticized everything I did, everything I wore, everything I was, who had never once treated me like a daughter. You know what, Victoria? You are right. I do not belong here. But not because I'm not good enough. Because I am too good. Too good to spend another minute with people who have no hearts. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. For once in her life, Victoria Morrison had nothing to say. I walked out the door and did not look back. The rain had stopped. Late afternoon sunlight was breaking through the clouds. A beautiful evening, the kind of evening that should have meant something. Instead, I loaded my entire life into the trunk of my old Honda Civic and drove away from the only home I had known for 8 years. I had nowhere to go, no family. My father was dead. My mother had passed when I was a teenager. I was an only child. And friends. What friends, Derek, had slowly, systematically isolated me from everyone I knew. Every time I made plans with someone, something came up. Every time I suggested a girls' night out, he needed me at home. After a while, people stopped calling, stopped inviting, stopped remembering I existed. I pulled into a gas station parking lot and sat there as the sun went down. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. A text from Derek. Papers will be ready tomorrow. Do not make this difficult. I turned off my phone and cried until I had nothing left. That night, I slept in my car. I know how that sounds. Pathetic, humiliating. A 55-year-old woman curled up in the back seat of a Honda in a Walmart parking lot. But I had maybe $300 in my personal checking account. Derek had always handled our finances, gave me a credit card for household expenses that had already been canceled. The $50,000 settlement they had offered would not come through until I signed the divorce papers. And I was not ready to sign. Not yet. Not like this. The first few days were survival. I learned that you can wash up in gas station bathrooms if you are quick and do not make eye contact. I learned that dollar stores sell food that will keep you alive, even if it does not taste like much. I learned that libraries have free Wi-Fi and comfortable chairs and will let you stay all day as long as you look like you belong there. I learned that nobody looks at homeless people. Not really. They look through them. Like they are not there. Like they are invisible. I became invisible. On the fourth day, Derek's lawyer called. A man named Richard Crane who spoke to me like I was a slow child who could not understand simple concepts. Mrs. Morrison, my client is growing impatient. He is prepared to proceed to court if you do not sign the settlement agreement by Friday. I have not had a chance to consult with my own lawyer. With what money? He actually laughed. Let me be frank with you. You have no leverage here, no assets, no income, no legal standing. If this goes to court, you will lose, and you will lose badly. You might even end up owing Mr. Morrison money. Is that what you want? I want what is fair. Fair. Another laugh. Mrs. Morrison, you contributed nothing to this marriage except your presence. You did not work. You did not bring any assets. You do not even have children to support. $50,000 is more than fair. It is generous. I hung up on him. It was the first time I had ever hung up on anyone in my life. It felt surprisingly good. That afternoon, I went to see Victoria. I do not know what I was thinking. Maybe I thought that beneath all that ice there was still a human being. Maybe I thought that if I humbled myself enough, she might offer a little help, just enough to get me through until I could find work, just enough to keep me off the streets. I was wrong. She made me stand on the porch, did not even invite me inside, looked at me like I was something the cat had dragged in. You have some nerve showing your face here. Victoria, I just need a little help. Alone. Anything. I have nowhere to go. And whose fault is that? You should have thought about your future before you failed to keep my son happy. I tried. I tried for 8 years. Obviously not hard enough. She straightened her pearls. I told Derek from the beginning that you were not wife material, a mechanic's daughter, no family, no connections, no breeding. But he was young and foolish, and he thought he was in love. Well, he has wised up now. Brittany comes from good stock. Her father is in banking. Her mother is on the board of the symphony. She will give Derek the kind of wife he deserves. I gave him everything I had, which was nothing, and now you want us to support you after you failed at the one job you had absolutely not. Victoria, please, just until I get on my feet. I will pay you back. With what? Your charm, she laughed, that cold, cruel laugh. I would not give you a penny if you were dying in the street. Your father was a nobody, and you are a nobody. Now get off my property before I call the police. The door slammed in my face. I stood there for a long time, feeling something change inside me. The sadness was still there, the humiliation, the despair. But underneath all of it, something else was growing. Rage. Pure burning rage, not at my situation, not even at Derek and his cheating and his cruelty, but at myself, for letting this happen, for becoming so small, for forgetting who I was. My father had raised me to be strong, independent, capable. He had taught me how to change a tire and balance a checkbook and stand up for myself. And somewhere along the way, I had lost all of that. Had let Derek sand down my edges until I was smooth and bland and easy to dismiss. No more. I did not know how yet, did not know what I was going to do. But standing on Victoria Morrison's perfectly manicured front lawn, I made myself a promise. I was going to survive this. And then I was going to make them all sorry they ever underestimated Margaret Chen. On day 7, I signed the divorce papers. Not because I wanted to, not because I thought it was fair, but because I needed that $50,000 to survive. And because my lawyer, a tired public defender who took my case pro bono, told me that fighting would cost more than I could ever win. "Sign it," she said. "Take the money, start over. Living well is the best revenge." So I signed, gave up all claims to 8 years of marriage, watched my signature dry on paper that erased me from Derek Morrison's life, as completely as if I had never existed. The money came through 3 days later, $50,000. It felt like blood money, hush money, go away and never come back money. I checked into a cheap motel on the outskirts of Boston. Nothing fancy. Just a bed, a bathroom, a television that got 6 channels. But it was warm and dry and mine. The first thing I did was take a shower. A real shower with hot water and soap and privacy. I stood under the spray until my skin was red and my tears had run dry. The second thing I did was go through my father's box. I laid everything out on the bed. His watch, his wallet, his photographs, his tools, the memories of a man who had worked his whole life and died with nothing to show for it except a daughter who loved him. And the bank card. I held it up to the light again, studied it more closely this time. First Harbor Bank, my father's name, an expiration date that was still 20 years away. That was strange. Bank cards did not have expiration dates that far in the future, at least none that I had ever seen. I turned it over. On the back in tiny letters were the words, "Founding Member." Founding member of what my father had never mentioned anything about a bank, had never talked about investments or accounts or anything beyond making sure the bills were paid each month. He was a mechanic, a good, honest, hard-working mechanic who fixed cars for 40 years and never asked for anything except to be left alone to do his job. So why did he have a founding member card from one of the most exclusive banks in Boston? I thought about throwing it away. It was probably nothing. Some kind of mistake, maybe a promotion that never went anywhere, maybe a card that was never activated. But something stopped me. A feeling. A voice in the back of my head that sounded like my father. "You never know, Maggie girl. You just never know." The next morning I put on the nicest clothes I had left. A simple blue dress, a little wrinkled but clean, my mother's pearl earrings the only jewelry I had managed to keep. I brushed my hair and put on some lipstick and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired, old, beaten down. But I also looked like my father's daughter, and that was enough. First Harbor Bank was downtown in a beautiful old building with marble columns and brass fixtures, the kind of place that screamed old money and exclusivity, the kind of place where people like me did not belong. I pushed through the revolving door anyway. The lobby was hushed and elegant. Thick carpets, leather chairs, security guards who looked at me like I had wandered in by mistake. I walked to the front desk with my heart pounding. "Can I help you?" The receptionist was young, polished, professionally cold. Her eyes swept over my cheap dress and worn shoes. "I would like to check on an account. My father's account. He passed away some time ago and I just found his bank card." I held up the card. The receptionist's eyes widened. Her face went pale. For a moment, she seemed frozen in place. "One moment, please." She picked up her phone and spoke rapidly into it. I could not hear what she said. Just watched her face grow more alarmed with each second. "If you could just wait here, ma'am." Within minutes, people started appearing. First, one manager, then another, then security, then more managers. They huddled together, whispering, shooting glances at me like I was a bomb about to explode. My stomach dropped. Had I done something wrong? Was my father involved in something illegal? Was I about to be arrested? I started backing toward the door. "I'm sorry. I did not mean to cause any trouble. I will just go." "Mrs. Chen." A new voice, deep, authoritative. I turned to see a man in an expensive suit walking toward me. He was older, silver-haired, distinguished, the kind of man who looked like he owned the building, which I realized a moment later he probably did. "I am Walter Hayes, president of First Harbor Bank." He extended his hand. His grip was firm, but his fingers were trembling. "Would you mind coming to my office? There is something we need to discuss." I followed him in silence, through the lobby, into a private elevator, up to the top floor, into an office that looked like it belonged in a museum. Antique furniture, original paintings, a view of Boston Harbor that must have been worth millions. "Please sit." He gestured to a chair. "Can I get you anything, water, coffee, something stronger?" "I do not understand. What is happening? Is there something wrong with my father's account?" Mr. Hayes sat down across from me. His hands were still shaking. "Mrs. Chen, may I see the card again?" I handed it over. He examined it carefully, turned it over, held it up to the light. Then he set it gently on his desk like it was made of gold. "Do you know what this is?" "A bank card, my father's bank card. Not just any bank card." He took a deep breath. "This is a founding member card. There are only 4 in existence. They were created when First Harbor Bank was established in 1985. Each one grants the holder access to their accounts, their investments, and," he paused, "their ownership stake in the bank itself." The words did not make sense. They rattled around in my head like marbles refusing to form a coherent picture. "Ownership stake, I do not understand. My father was a mechanic." "Mrs. Chen, I have been waiting for this moment for 15 years. Ever since your father stopped coming to our board meetings, ever since he stopped responding to our letters and phone calls, we tried to find him, hired investigators, searched every database we could access. But Henry Chen is a common name and he had no digital footprint. It was like he vanished." "He did not vanish. He just lived a quiet life, and then he died. 7 years ago. A heart attack in his shop." "Yes." Mr. Hayes nodded slowly. "We eventually learned that, but by then we had lost all trace of his family. We did not know he had a daughter, did not know where to find you." My head was spinning. "Mr. Hayes, please, start from the beginning, because none of this makes any sense." He leaned back in his chair. "In 1985, 4 men came together to create First Harbor Bank. David Morrison, who handled the finances." My heart stopped. "Morrison?" "Yes, David Morrison. Derek Morrison's father." The world tilted sideways. "David Morrison, Robert Pierce, who provided the real estate connections. William Hayes, my father, who handled the legal aspects. And Henry Chen." "My father," I whispered. "Your father, the genius." "Genius. He fixed cars for a living." "By choice, Mrs. Chen. By choice." Mr. Hayes stood and walked to a safe hidden behind a painting. He opened it and pulled out a yellowed folder. "Your father was one of the most brilliant financial minds of his generation. He had a gift for seeing patterns in markets that others could not, for turning small investments into fortunes. He helped build empires." He handed me the folder. Inside were documents I could barely comprehend: contracts, financial statements, stock certificates, and photographs. One photograph showed 4 men standing in front of the First Harbor Bank building on opening day. 3 were in expensive suits, champagne glasses raised. The 4th was my father, young, handsome, grinning from ear to ear, wearing simple work clothes, grease still visible under his fingernails. I could not breathe. "Your father provided the initial investment strategy that made this bank possible," Mr. Hayes continued. "In return, he received 12% ownership and a seat on the board. But after the first few years, he withdrew, said he did not want the life that came with wealth, said he just wanted to work with his hands and live simply." That sounds like him. He converted most of his dividends into trust funds and investments, set them to accumulate automatically. We sent statements to his address for years, but he never responded, never withdrew a penny. And when we realized the statements were being returned, when we understood that he had died, we did not know how to find his heirs. Mr. Hayes sat back down. His expression was grave, almost frightened. "Mrs. Chen, your father's account has been growing for nearly 40 years, with compound interest reinvestment and the appreciation of bank assets." He slid a piece of paper across the desk. I looked at the number written there, and the world went silent. $47 million, $47,322,611.42. I stared at that number until my eyes burned, read it again and again and again. This has to be a mistake. I assure you, It is not. Mr. Hayes' voice was gentle, almost tender. Your father was an extremely wealthy man, Mrs. Chen. He simply chose to live as though he was not. I thought about my childhood, the small apartment above the garage, the hand-me-down clothes, the second-hand furniture, the way my father worked 60-hour weeks just to keep the lights on, and all along he was a millionaire. Why? The word came out as a sob. Why would he live like that? Why would he let me struggle, let me marry? I could not finish, could not put into words the horror of what I was realizing. Derek Morrison's family had known. Victoria had said it herself. She had investigated my father, found out about his connection to the bank, told Derek to marry me so they could get their hands on the money. The whole marriage was a con, from the very beginning. There is something else, Mr. Hayes said. Something your father left here in our vault, with instructions that it be given to you if you ever came forward. He produced a small envelope, yellowed with age. My name was written on the front in my father's careful handwriting. I opened it with trembling hands, and my father's voice spoke to me one last time. My dearest Maggie, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and you have found your way to First Harbor. I always knew you would when the time was right. I am sorry for keeping this secret from you. I hope you can understand why. When your mother and I got married, we had nothing. We were happy. We loved each other. We loved you. And then I discovered this gift I had for making money. At first it seemed like a blessing, but I watched what wealth did to the other founders, watched them lose their marriages, their families, their souls, to the pursuit of more. David Morrison. His family became hollow. His son grew up believing that money could buy anything, including people. Robert Pierce's children turned cruel and entitled. Even William Hayes, my closest friend, could not escape it entirely. I did not want that for you, Maggie. I wanted you to know struggle, to know the value of work, to find love for the right reasons, not because of what you could offer someone. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have told you. But I believed then, and I still believe now, that the best gift I could give you was the chance to become yourself without the burden of wealth. This money is yours now, all of it. Use it wisely, use it kindly, and remember that it does not define you. You define you, your father who loved you more than anything in this world. Dad, P.S. If anyone ever makes you feel small, remember this. You come from giants. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. I read the letter 3 times, then I read it again. Each time my father's voice grew stronger in my head. I could hear him saying these words, could see him sitting at his workbench late at night, grease on his hands, writing this letter by lamplight while I slept upstairs. He had known. All along he had known that someday I might need this, that someday his little girl might find herself lost and alone and desperate, and he had prepared for it, had left this gift waiting for me like a safety net I never knew existed. Mrs. Chen. Mr. Hayes' voice pulled me back to the present. Are you all right? I wiped my eyes, folded the letter carefully, and tucked it into my pocket close to my heart. My father. He knew about the Morrisons, knew what kind of people they were. Henry was the most perceptive man I ever met. He saw through people instantly. It was part of what made him such a brilliant investor. He could read markets because he could read human nature. Then why did he not warn me? Why did he let me marry Derek if he knew? Mr. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. I cannot speak for your father, Mrs. Chen, but I knew him well, and I believe he wanted you to make your own choices, your own mistakes. He trusted that you would find your way eventually, that you would become strong enough to handle whatever life threw at you. Strong, I laughed bitterly. I have been sleeping in my car for the past week. I signed away 8 years of my life for $50,000. I let them treat me like garbage because I thought I had no other option. And yet here you are. Mr. Hayes leaned forward. You found the card. You came to the bank. You did not give up. That is exactly what your father would have expected. I looked at the number on the paper again. $47 million. It still did not feel real. What happens now? Now we begin the process of transferring your father's assets into your name. It will take some time. There are legal procedures, identity verifications, paperwork. But I can have our attorneys expedite everything. Given the circumstances, I think we can have full access restored within 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 14 days. After 7 years of the money sitting untouched, 2 weeks felt like nothing. In the meantime, Mr. Hayes continued, I can arrange an immediate advance against your inheritance, whatever you need to get back on your feet. How much do you want? I thought about it, about the motel room, about the $50,000 that had felt like a fortune just yesterday, about all the things I needed. 100,000, for now. Mr. Hayes smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had seen from him. Consider it done. I will have the funds transferred to a new account in your name within the hour. And Mrs. Chen, I want you to know something. Your father was a good man, the best man I ever knew. He would be very proud of you. I left the bank 2 hours later with a new debit card, a folder full of documents, and a team of lawyers and financial advisors who were apparently now at my disposal. The security guards who had looked at me with suspicion when I walked in now nodded respectfully as I passed. Amazing how money changes the way people see you. My first stop was a hotel. Not the cheap motel where I had been staying. A real hotel. The Four Seasons overlooking the harbor. I walked up to the front desk in my wrinkled blue dress and asked for their best suite. The receptionist looked at me doubtfully. Ma'am, our suites start at $3,000 per night. I handed her my new bank card. I will take it for a week. Her expression changed when the payment went through. Suddenly, I was not a homeless woman in a cheap dress. I was a valued guest who deserved the best service they could offer. Of course, Mrs. Chen, let me personally escort you to your room. The suite was bigger than the apartment I grew up in. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a king-sized bed with sheets that felt like clouds, a bathroom with a soaking tub and heated floors, fresh flowers on every surface. I stood in the middle of it all and felt absolutely nothing. Because the suite did not matter. The money did not matter. What mattered was the truth I had learned today. The truth that changed everything I thought I knew about my life. Derek Morrison had never loved me. His family had targeted me from the beginning. They had investigated my father, discovered his secret wealth, and sent Derek to seduce me like some kind of long con. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of feeling inadequate, unworthy, less than. And it was all a scheme to get their hands on money that was never theirs. I sat down on the bed and pulled out my phone. Derek had sent several messages while I was at the bank. Sign the papers, Maggie. Do not make this difficult. My lawyer says you have been dodging his calls, very immature. Fine, have it your way. See you in court. I read each message with new eyes. The arrogance, the entitlement, the absolute certainty that he held all the cards. He had no idea what was coming. I could have called him right then, could have told him everything, could have listened to him stammer and backpedal and suddenly remember how much he loved me. The thought was tempting. But I did not do it, because revenge is a dish best served cold. And I had waited 7 years without knowing I was waiting. I could wait a little longer. Instead, I called the law firm Mr. Hayes had recommended. Reed and Associates. The best in Boston, he said, the kind of lawyers who made other lawyers nervous. Reed and Associates. How may I direct your call? I would like to speak with Sarah Reed. Tell her Margaret Chen is calling. Tell her I am a client of First Harbor Bank, and I have a case that requires immediate attention. 3 minutes later, I was on the phone with one of the most powerful attorneys in the state. Mrs. Chen Walter Hayes speaks very highly of you. How can I help? I need you to destroy someone, legally, of course. A pause, then a laugh. Not cruel like Victoria's. Appreciative. I think we are going to get along very well, Mrs. Chen. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about Derek, about the marriage, about the affair, about being thrown out with nothing, about the divorce settlement I had signed under duress, about what I had discovered at the bank. Sarah Reed listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Chen, you have grounds for several legal actions. The divorce settlement was clearly coerced and signed without proper legal representation. You may be able to have it voided. Additionally, if the Morrison family investigated your father's finances before Derek pursued you, that suggests premeditation. Depending on what we can prove, there may be fraud charges. What do you need from me? Time, access to your records, and your trust. Can you give me those? You have all three, and unlimited budget. I want every stone turned over, every secret exposed. I want to know exactly what they knew and when they knew it. Understood. I will have my team start immediately. In the meantime, I would advise you to avoid contact with your ex-husband or his family. Let us handle all communications from here on out. One more thing. I want to know about Derek's company. Morrison Construction, everything about it. Financials, contracts, partners, everything. May I ask why? Because I have a feeling that a man who would marry a woman for money is the same kind of man who would cut corners in business. And I want to know exactly how many corners Derek Morrison has cut. Sarah Reed's voice carried a hint of admiration. I will have a full report on your desk within the week. After the call, I ordered room service. A steak, a bottle of wine, a chocolate cake for dessert. The kind of meal I never would have allowed myself before. The kind of meal Derek would have criticized as excessive. I ate every bite. And for the first time in years, I did not feel guilty about it. The next few days were a blur of activity. I went shopping. Not for expensive things, not to show off, but because I literally had nothing. Derek had taken everything. I needed clothes, toiletries, a laptop, a phone that was not connected to his account. Basic necessities that I had to rebuild from scratch. I got a haircut. Something I had not done in months because Derek always complained about the cost. The stylist took one look at my split ends and gasped, "Honey, who has been doing your hair, a lawnmower?" My husband did not believe in salon visits. Your ex-husband, I hope. Very ex. She gave me a look of solidarity that only women who have survived bad marriages can share. Then she gave me the best haircut of my life, shoulder length, layered, modern. When she spun the chair around, I barely recognized myself. "There she is," the stylist said. "There is the woman who is hiding under all that neglect." I tipped her $100 and walked out feeling lighter than I had in years. But the real work was happening behind the scenes. Sarah Reed called every day with updates. Her team was digging into Derek's life with surgical precision. And what they found was worse than I had imagined. Morrison Construction was not just struggling, it was drowning in debt. Years of mismanagement, inflated contracts, and outright fraud had left the company on the brink of collapse. Derek had been hiding the true state of his finances from everyone, including his own board of directors. He has been taking out loans against assets he does not actually own, Sarah explained during one of our calls, using company funds for personal expenses, falsifying reports to investors. If this comes to light, he is looking at serious federal charges. Why has no one caught this before? Because he is good at hiding things, and because his father's reputation still carries weight in this town. People trusted the Morrison name. They did not look too closely. What about Brittany, his secretary, the woman he left me for? Interesting you should mention her. We found a shell company registered in her name 6 months ago. Derek has been funneling money into it. Our guess is he was planning to declare bankruptcy, protect his personal assets through Brittany, and start over. You were supposed to be cut loose before anyone figured it out. I felt sick. All those years of being told I was not good enough, of being made to feel like a burden, and the whole time Derek was the one dragging us down. There is more, Sarah continued. We traced the investigation into your father back to Victoria Morrison. She hired a private detective 15 years ago, right around the time Derek started college. The detective's report mentions Henry Chen's connection to First Harbor Bank. It also mentions you. Me. You were 17. The report describes you as, and I quote, a shy, unremarkable girl with no social connections and no knowledge of her father's wealth. Victoria saw an opportunity. A young, naive woman who could be easily manipulated, who would be grateful for the attention of a handsome, wealthy man. Tears burned in my eyes, not from sadness, from anger. She planned it. She planned all of it. It appears so. Derek's pursuit of you was not romantic. It was strategic. Victoria groomed him to seduce you, marry you, and eventually gain control of your inheritance. But they never got the money. No, because your father was too smart for them. He set up the trust to be virtually invisible. No statements mailed, no communications, nothing that could be intercepted or discovered. He knew Mrs. Chen. He knew exactly what kind of people the Morrisons were, and he protected you the only way he could. I thought about my father, about his quiet wisdom, his patience, the way he always seemed to be 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Even from beyond the grave, he was still looking out for me. What can we do with this information? Several things. First, we can have your divorce settlement voided on grounds of fraud and coercion. Second, we can file civil suits against Derek and Victoria for conspiracy and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Third, we can report the financial irregularities at Morrison Construction to the appropriate authorities. Do it. All of it. There is one more option. Sarah's voice was careful. Derek's company is hemorrhaging cash. They are desperate for capital. If someone were to quietly acquire their outstanding debts, they could essentially take control of the company without Derek even knowing. You mean buy his debt? Exactly. The banks would be happy to sell. They do not think they will ever collect anyway. And once you control the debt, you control the company. I thought about it. About all the times Derek had made me feel worthless. All the times Victoria had looked at me like I was dirt beneath her designer shoes. All the times I had smiled and nodded and pretended everything was fine, while inside I was dying. Do it. Are you sure it is a significant investment, and it could take months to execute properly? I am sure. I want it all. Every loan, every debt, every piece of leverage. And I do not want them to know it is me until it is too late. Understood. I will begin immediately. The next few weeks were the strangest of my life. On the surface, nothing had changed. I was still Margaret Chen, divorced woman, starting over at 55. I rented a modest apartment on the outskirts of Boston, bought sensible furniture, started looking for volunteer work to fill my days. But underneath everything was different. I was building an empire, quietly, carefully, piece by piece. Sarah's team acquired Derek's debts through a shell company registered in Delaware, Chen Holdings, LLC, named after my father. A fitting tribute, I thought, using his legacy to bring down the people who had tried to steal it. By the end of the first month, I controlled 40% of Morrison Construction's outstanding loans. By the end of the second month, it was 60%. Derek had no idea. He was too busy juggling creditors and trying to keep his company afloat, too busy spending money he did not have on Brittany and her expensive tastes, too busy being Derek Morrison, master of the universe, to notice the walls closing in around him. I watched from the shadows, patient, waiting. My father would have been proud. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday afternoon. Sarah called with news that made my heart stop. We found something big. Tell me. Derek's company has a major project, a new development downtown, luxury condominiums, very high profile. The financing is complicated, but here is the key. If the project fails, if the loans are called in before completion, the whole company collapses. Not just financially, legally. There are investors who would lose everything. They would sue, the fraud would come out, Derek would be destroyed. And we control those loans now. As of this morning, yes, Chen Holdings acquired the final piece yesterday. We now hold 63% of Morrison Construction's debt obligations. We can call in those loans at any time. I closed my eyes, felt the weight of that power, the ability to end Derek Morrison with a single phone call. Not yet, I said. Excuse me. I do not want to destroy him from a distance. I want to look him in the eye when it happens. I want him to know exactly who brought him down and why. Mrs. Chen, I must advise you that confronting him directly could complicate the legal proceedings. I understand, but I have waited 8 years for this moment. I am not going to miss it. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed softly. I will set up the meeting. The call came 2 days later. Not from Sarah. From Derek's lawyer, Richard Crane, the same cold voice that had threatened me when I had nothing. Mrs. Morrison, I am calling on behalf of Chen Holdings LLC. They have acquired the majority of your husband's debt and are calling it due immediately. I almost laughed. He did not know, did not recognize the name, did not put together that Chen Holdings might have anything to do with the woman he had dismissed as worthless. What does this have to do with me? I am divorced from Derek Morrison. Chen Holdings has requested a meeting with all relevant parties. They specifically asked that you be included. Why would they want me there? I have no idea, Mrs. Morrison, but they were very insistent. The meeting is tomorrow, noon, First Harbor Bank, the president's office. I will be there. I hung up and smiled. Tomorrow, everything would change. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The years of marriage, the betrayal, the discovery, the planning, the waiting. I thought about my father, about his letter, about the gift he had given me, not just the money, the lesson, that true worth comes from inside, that no one can make you feel small unless you let them. For 8 years I had let them. Derek, Victoria, Brittany, all the people who had looked at me and seen nothing, who had treated me like I was invisible. Tomorrow they would see me, really see me, for the first time and the last time. I got up and went to the window. The city sparkled below. Boston, the city where I was born, the city where my father had built his secret fortune, the city where I had lost myself and found myself again. I am ready, Dad, I whispered to the darkness. I am finally ready. Morning came slowly. I dressed carefully, not expensively, not to impress. I wore a simple black dress, elegant but understated. My father's watch on my wrist, finally repaired after 7 years, my mother's pearl earrings. I looked at myself in the mirror. I did not see the woman Derek had married, the quiet, grateful girl who thought she had found her savior. That woman was gone. I saw Margaret Chen, daughter of Henry Chen, founding member of First Harbor Bank, majority shareholder, billionaire. And I saw something else, something that had been hiding beneath the surface all along. Strength. My father saw it. He wrote about it in his letter. He knew that someday his Maggie girl would need to stand tall and fight, and he made sure she had the weapons to win. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. It was time. The drive to First Harbor Bank felt like a dream. The familiar streets of Boston passing by, the morning traffic, the ordinary people living their ordinary lives completely unaware that just a few blocks away, a reckoning was about to happen. I parked in the garage beneath the building, took the elevator up to the lobby, walked through the marble halls that had seemed so intimidating just a few weeks ago. Now they felt like home. Mr. Hayes was waiting for me at the entrance to his office. Mrs. Chen, are you ready? I have been ready for 8 years, Mr. Hayes. I just did not know it. He nodded and opened the door. They were already inside. Derek, Victoria, Brittany, Richard Crane, all of them seated around the conference table like they owned the place. They looked up when I entered. Derek's face registered confusion, then irritation. Maggie, what the hell are you doing here? I did not answer, just walked to the window and looked out at the harbor, the same view my father had looked at 40 years ago when he helped build this bank. I asked you a question, Derek snapped. Why are you here? This is a private business meeting. Is it? I turned to face them. Then I should probably introduce myself. My name is Margaret Chen. I am the sole owner of Chen Holdings LLC, and as of this morning, I control 63% of Morrison Construction's outstanding debt. The silence that followed was deafening. Derek's face went white. Victoria's mouth dropped open. Brittany looked from one to the other, clearly not understanding what was happening. Richard Crane was the first to recover. That is impossible. Chen Holdings is owned by an anonymous Delaware corporation. There is no way. There is every way. I walked to the table and sat down at the head, the seat of power. My father was Henry Chen, one of the founding members of this bank. He left me $47 million and a 12% ownership stake in First Harbor. Did you really think I would not use it? Derek stood up so fast his chair fell over. This is insane. You are lying. You have nothing. Your father was a grease monkey, a nobody. You are a nobody. Sit down, Derek. My voice was calm, steady. Sit down and listen, because for the first time in 8 years you are going to hear the truth. He did not sit, but he did not speak either, just stood there staring at me like he was seeing a ghost. Your mother investigated my father before we ever met. She found out about his connection to this bank, about the fortune he was hiding, and she sent you to seduce me, to marry me, to wait for my father to die so you could get your hands on his money. Victoria's face had gone completely pale. That is ridiculous. I never... Do not lie to me. I have the private detective's report, the one you commissioned 15 years ago, the one that describes me as a shy, unremarkable girl who could be easily manipulated. Victoria's mouth snapped shut. For 8 years I believed you, Derek, believed that you loved me, believed that I was lucky to have you, and the whole time you were just waiting for the payday that never came. Maggie, listen to me. Derek's voice had changed, softer now, almost pleading. Whatever you think you know, you have got it wrong. I did love you. I do love you. We can work this out. Work this out? I laughed. You threw me out on the street, called me worthless, had your mistress wear my clothes while you divorced me for $50,000, and now you want to work it out. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. You cannot destroy my entire company because of a mistake. I stood and walked toward him, slowly, deliberately, until we were face to face. Watch me. I turned to Mr. Hayes. Call in the loans, all of them, immediately. Derek grabbed my arm. You cannot do this. I will lose everything. The company, the house, everything my father built. Your father. I pulled my arm free. Let me tell you about your father, Derek. David Morrison was a mediocre businessman who rode my father's coattails to success. Everything he built, everything your family has exists because Henry Chen was too humble to take credit for his own genius. So when you talk about what your father built, remember whose shoulders he was standing on. Victoria found her voice. This is extortion. We will sue. We will have you arrested. For what? Collecting debts that are legally owed, enforcing contracts that your son signed. I shook my head. You spent so long looking down on me that you forgot to look up, and now the sky is falling. I walked to the door, paused, turned back one last time. I want you to remember this moment, Derek. Remember how it feels to have everything taken away, to be told you are worthless, to watch your life crumble while someone else holds all the power. My eyes found his, held them. That is how you made me feel for 8 years, every single day. And unlike you, I actually earned my happy ending. I walked out without looking back. The last thing I heard was Victoria screaming at Derek, blaming him, falling apart the way wealthy people do when they realize their money cannot save them. In the elevator, I finally let myself breathe. It was over. Not the legal proceedings. Those would take months. But the confrontation, the reckoning, the moment I had dreamed about without ever knowing I was dreaming it. My father's voice echoed in my head. If anyone ever makes you feel small, remember this. You come from giants. I came from giants. And now, finally, I was standing tall. The phone calls started before I even reached my apartment. First it was Derek. I let it go to voicemail. Then Victoria, voicemail. Then Richard Crane, his lawyer, voicemail. Then numbers I did not recognize, all voicemail. By the time I walked through my front door, I had 17 missed calls and twice as many text messages. I did not read any of them, did not need to. I knew exactly what they would say. Threats, pleas, bargains, the desperate flailing of people who had suddenly realized they were drowning. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by the window, watched the sunset over Boston, thought about my father, about his letter, about everything that had brought me to this moment. My phone buzzed again. This time, I looked. It was Sarah Reed. Mrs. Chen, I just got off the phone with Richard Crane. He is begging for a meeting. Says his clients are willing to negotiate. Negotiate what? Everything. The debt, the settlement, the fraud charges. He is scared, Margaret. Really scared. I smiled. Good. Let him be scared for a while. Let them all be scared. What do you want me to tell him? Tell him I will consider a meeting, next week, maybe, if I feel like it. Sarah laughed. You are enjoying this. Is that wrong? No. After what they did to you, I think you have earned a little enjoyment. I hung up and finished my wine. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt something close to peace. But peace never lasts, not in this world. The next morning I woke to pounding on my door. I grabbed my robe and looked through the peephole. My heart stopped. Derek. He looked terrible, unshaven, rumpled, his expensive suit wrinkled like he had slept in it. His eyes were red and wild. Maggie, I know you are in there. Please, we need to talk. I did not answer, did not move, just stood there watching him through the tiny circle of glass. Maggie, please, I am begging you. Just give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes to explain. I should have called the police, should have called Sarah, should have done anything except what I did. I opened the door. 5 minutes. He rushed inside like a man escaping a flood, grabbed my hands before I could stop him. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I know I do not deserve it. I know I hurt you. But you have to understand, I never wanted any of this. I pulled my hands away. Any of what, Derek? The affair, the divorce, throwing me out on the street. The whole thing, the plan, my mother's plan. He ran his fingers through his hair. She set it up before we even met, found out about your father, told me exactly what to do, what to say, how to make you fall in love with me. I was 25 years old. I did what she told me. You expect me to feel sorry for you. No, I expect you to understand. I was young, stupid. I thought it was just business. I did not know it would go on for so long. Did not know I would actually... He stopped, looked at me with something that might have been genuine pain. Did not know you would actually fall in love with you. The words hung in the air between us. I wanted to believe them. Part of me desperately wanted to believe that somewhere buried beneath all the lies there had been something real, but I knew better now. If you loved me, why did you cheat? Why did you throw me away? Because I was weak, because Brittany was easy and uncomplicated, and she did not remind me of everything I had done wrong. Every time I looked at you, I saw my mother's scheme, saw myself playing a role. It was easier to hate you than to face what I had become. So you destroyed my life because you could not handle your own guilt. Yes. He sank onto my couch. Yes, I know how that sounds. I know it does not excuse anything, but I am telling you the truth now. For the first time in 8 years, I am telling you the truth. I stood over him. This man I had loved, this man I had given everything to, this man who had broken me so completely that I had forgotten who I was. The truth, I repeated. You want to tell me the truth? Yes. Then answer me this. When you kicked me out, when you called me worthless, when you said my father was a nobody and I was nothing, did you mean it? He did not answer, could not meet my eyes. Did you mean it, Derek? I was angry. I was frustrated. The company was falling apart and I needed someone to blame. So you blamed me. Yes. Even though I had nothing to do with your problems. Yes. I walked to the window, put my back to him, could not bear to look at his face anymore. Do you know what the worst part is? It is not the affair. It is not the money. It is not even the scheme. The worst part is that I believed you. For 8 years, I believed that I was lucky to have you, that I was not good enough on my own, that without Derek Morrison, I was nothing. Maggie, you did not just betray me. You made me betray myself, and I will never forgive you for that. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. What happens now? His voice was small, broken. Now you leave. And you never contact me again. But the company, the debt, you cannot just... I can do whatever I want, Derek. That is what happens when you hold all the cards. I turned to face him. I have not decided what to do yet. Maybe I will destroy everything you have. Maybe I will let you crawl away with something. But that decision is mine, not yours. You lost the right to have a say in your own future when you treated me like garbage." He stood slowly, walked toward the door, stopped with his hand on the knob. "I really did love you, Maggie. In my own broken way, I really did. That is the saddest thing anyone has ever said to me." He left without another word. I locked the door behind him and slid down to the floor. The tears came then, not tears of sadness, not exactly, more like release, like everything I had been holding inside for the past weeks was finally breaking free. For 10 minutes, I sat there and cried, and then I got up, washed my face, and called Sarah Reed. "I want the investigation accelerated. Everything, the fraud, the shell companies, the hidden accounts. I want to know exactly how deep the Morrison family's corruption goes." "Mrs. Chen, are you all right? You sound upset." "I am fine. Better than fine. Derek came to see me this morning." "What did he threaten you? I can have a restraining order filed within the hour." "No threats, just excuses. He says Victoria planned everything, that he was just following orders." "Do you believe him?" I thought about it, about the desperation in his eyes, the way his voice cracked when he talked about falling in love with me. "I believe he is weak. I believe he did terrible things because it was easier than doing the right thing, but I do not believe that makes him innocent." "Neither do I. And speaking of Victoria, you should know that she has been making calls, trying to rally support. She is telling everyone who will listen that you are mentally unstable, that you are making up stories about your father's wealth, that this is all some kind of revenge fantasy." "Of course she is." "It will not work. We have documentation, bank records, the private detective's report, but she is going to make this ugly before it is over." "Let her try. I have been fighting Victoria Morrison my entire marriage. At least now I have the ammunition to fight back." The next few days were chaos. News of Morrison Construction's financial troubles leaked somehow, probably Victoria trying to generate sympathy. Instead, it triggered a feeding frenzy. Investors demanded answers, creditors demanded payment, employees started jumping ship. Derek made 2 more attempts to see me. The first time I did not answer the door. The second time he waited in the lobby of my building for 3 hours until security escorted him out. His text messages grew increasingly desperate. "Maggie, please, we can still fix this. I know I hurt you, but you are hurting innocent people, the employees, their families. Is this really who you want to be?" That last one actually made me pause. Was this who I wanted to be? The woman who destroyed a company out of revenge, the woman who put hundreds of people out of work because her husband had betrayed her. I called Sarah. "The employees at Morrison Construction. If the company collapses, what happens to them? Most would lose their jobs. Some have been there for decades. They would lose pensions, benefits, everything. They did not do anything wrong. No, they did not." I thought about my father, about his letter. Use it wisely, he had written. Use it kindly. Is there a way to save the company without saving Derek? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Possibly. If Derek and Victoria were removed from leadership, if new management was brought in, if the debt was restructured, it would be difficult, but not impossible. Do it. Find a way. I do not want innocent people to suffer because of the Morrisons. And Derek, Victoria. They lose everything, their positions, their shares, their control. They walk away with nothing, just like they made me walk away with nothing. That is going to require legal maneuvering. It will not be clean. I do not care about clean. I care about justice. The plan took shape over the following week. Sarah's team worked around the clock. Lawyers negotiated with creditors. Accountants pored over financial records. Investigators dug deeper into the Morrison family's secrets. And what they found was stunning. Victoria Morrison had been running a side business for years, using her charity work as a front for money laundering, funneling donations into offshore accounts, taking kickbacks from contractors who wanted access to her husband's connections. David Morrison, Derek's father, had died 5 years ago. But the corruption he had built into the family empire lived on through his wife and son. "This is bigger than just Derek," Sarah told me during one of our daily calls. Victoria is looking at serious federal charges: tax evasion, wire fraud, money laundering. If we turn this over to the authorities, she is going to prison. Do it. Are you sure? Once this starts, there is no going back. The Morrison family will be destroyed. Completely. I thought about everything they had done, not just to me, to all the people they had cheated and manipulated over the years, to the charities that had trusted Victoria, to the investors who had believed in Derek's company. They destroyed themselves. I am just turning on the lights. The day the FBI knocked on Victoria Morrison's door was the day everything changed. I was not there, of course, but I watched the news coverage, saw them lead her out in handcuffs, her perfect silver hair disheveled, her designer clothes wrinkled. She was screaming something about false accusations, about conspiracies, about how she would sue everyone involved. By nightfall, she was in a federal holding facility awaiting arraignment. Derek called me an hour later. I actually answered. "Are you happy now?" His voice was raw, broken in a way I had never heard before. "No, Derek, I am not happy. I am not sure I even know what happy feels like anymore. My mother is in jail Maggie. She is 68 years old. She is also a criminal. She has been laundering money for decades, stealing from charities, cheating investors. That has nothing to do with me. You did this. You started this." I defended myself. There is a difference. Is there? Because from where I am standing, it looks like you are taking pleasure in destroying my family. I gripped the phone tighter. Your family tried to destroy me first. Your mother investigated my father before we even met. She sent you to seduce me, to marry me, to wait for my father to die so you could steal his money. For 8 years, I was a pawn in your family's scheme. So do not talk to me about destruction, Derek. You built this bomb. I just lit the fuse. It did not have to be this way. You are right. It did not. If you had treated me with even a shred of decency, if you had let me walk away with my dignity intact, none of this would have happened. But you did not. You called me worthless. You threw me out like garbage. You made me feel like nothing. My voice cracked. Do you have any idea what it is like to feel like nothing, Derek? To look in the mirror and see someone who does not matter, someone who could disappear and no one would notice. That is what you did to me. That is what your family did to me, and now you have the audacity to act like I am the villain. He did not answer. Maybe there was nothing left to say. I am going to ask you one more time, and I want you to be honest. Was any of it real? Any moment of our marriage, or was I just a target the entire time? The silence stretched so long I thought he had hung up. In the beginning, no. In the beginning, you were just part of my mother's plan, but somewhere along the way, he took a shaky breath. Somewhere along the way, I forgot I was pretending. The morning coffee, the Sunday drives, the way you laughed at my terrible jokes. Those were real, Maggie. At least they were real to me. But not real enough. No, not real enough. I closed my eyes, felt the last remnants of what we had been slip away. Goodbye, Derek. Maggie, wait. I hung up, and this time I meant it. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings and corporate restructuring. Morrison Construction was saved, not by the Morrisons, but by a new board of directors that I personally approved. The employees kept their jobs. The legitimate projects continued. The company even started to recover, freed from the weight of corruption that had been dragging it down for years. Derek lost everything: his position, his shares, his fancy car, and his fancy house, and his fancy life. The divorce settlement I had signed was thrown out by the courts, deemed invalid due to coercion and fraud. In the new settlement, I received half of what remained of his assets, which was not much. The government had frozen most of it during Victoria's investigation. Victoria went to trial 2 months later. I did not attend, did not need to. The evidence was overwhelming. She was convicted on 12 counts of fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. The judge sentenced her to 15 years in federal prison. Brittany disappeared somewhere in the middle of all this. I heard she had moved to Florida, started working as a receptionist, living the ordinary life she had tried so hard to escape by attaching herself to Derek. I did not feel sorry for her, but I did not feel triumphant either. Mostly I just felt tired. The anger that had sustained me through the investigation, the confrontation, the legal battles, it had burned itself out, left behind nothing but ash and empty space. I sat in my apartment one evening surrounded by documents and legal briefs and financial statements, surrounded by proof that I had won. But what had I won really? I was still alone, still 55 years old with no family and few friends, still trying to figure out who I was without Derek Morrison to define me. My father's letter sat on my desk. I had read it so many times, the paper was wearing thin. Use it wisely. Use it kindly. Had I used it wisely, I had saved a company, protected innocent employees, exposed corruption that had been festering for decades. Had I used it kindly, that was harder to answer. I had destroyed Victoria, sent an elderly woman to prison for the rest of her life. Yes, she deserved it. Yes, she was guilty. But was there kindness in watching someone you once called family be led away in handcuffs? I had ruined Derek, taken everything he had, left him with nothing but shame and regret. He had betrayed me, yes, had never loved me the way I loved him. But was there kindness in reducing him to ashes I did not know anymore? The only thing I knew for certain was that my father had believed in me, had trusted me to do the right thing with the power he had given me, and I was not sure I had lived up to that trust. The knock on my door came just after midnight. I was not expecting anyone, had not ordered food, had not made plans. I looked through the peephole. Derek, again. He looked worse than before, thin, pale, dressed in clothes that were obviously second-hand. The fall of Derek Morrison was complete. He had gone from penthouse to poverty in a matter of months. "I know you do not want to see me," he said through the door. "I know I have no right to be here, but I need to say something, and then I will leave, forever, I promise." Against my better judgment, I opened the door. He did not try to come inside this time, just stood in the hallway looking at me with eyes that had lost all their arrogance. I went to my father's grave today. First time since he died. I stood there trying to figure out what to say to him. How to explain what has happened. How to explain what I did to you. "What did you say?" "Nothing." Because I realized that he would not have cared. He was just like my mother. Just like me. He only cared about money, about status, about winning. Derek shook his head. "That is what we are, Maggie. That is what my family has always been, hollow, empty, chasing things that do not matter." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand why you did what you did, and I do not blame you for any of it." I leaned against the doorframe. "What do you want, Derek? Forgiveness, absolution? I am fresh out of both." "No, I do not want anything. I just—" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I found this when I was packing up the house. It was in a drawer. I do not know why I kept it all these years." He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Not expensive, not fancy. A simple silver band with a tiny blue stone. I recognized it immediately. This was my mother's ring, the one my father gave her when they got engaged. "You left it behind when I threw you out. It got mixed in with some papers. I found it a few days ago." He held the box out to me. "I thought you might want it back." I took the box with trembling hands. My mother's ring, the only thing I had of hers. I thought I had lost it forever. "Why would you return this?" "Because it is yours. Because some things are more important than revenge. Because maybe if I do one decent thing, I can start to live with myself again." And I looked at the ring, at the man who had hurt me more than anyone else in my life, at the complicated mess of emotion and history and pain that stood between us. "Thank you," I said quietly. "For this, at least." "You are welcome." He turned to go, stopped. "For what it is worth, Maggie, I hope you find happiness, real happiness, the kind I was never able to give you." He walked away without looking back. I stood in the doorway for a long time holding my mother's ring and crying, not for Derek, not for myself, for everything we could have been if we had been different people living different lives. That night I made a decision. The anger was gone. The need for revenge had burned itself out. It was time to build something new. I called Sarah Reed the next morning. I want to create a foundation, named after my father, to help people who have been abandoned, people who have lost everything and do not know how to start over." "That sounds wonderful, Mrs. Chen. What kind of help?" "Everything: housing, job training, legal assistance, financial education, whatever people need to get back on their feet." "That is ambitious." My father left me $47 million and a seat on the board of one of the most powerful banks in Boston. It is time I started using it for something that matters. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "He would be proud of you, Margaret. Your father, he would be very proud." I smiled for the first time in days. "I know. That is why I have to do this. Not for revenge, not for justice, for him, for everything he believed I could become." The Henry Chen Foundation was established 6 weeks later. We started small: a shelter for women escaping domestic abuse, a job training program for people over 50 who had been pushed out of the workforce, a legal clinic that helped victims of fraud navigate the court system. But it grew quickly. Word spread about what we were doing, donations poured in, volunteers signed up. Other organizations wanted to partner with us. Within a year, the Henry Chen Foundation had helped over 500 people rebuild their lives. Within 2 years, it was one of the most respected charitable organizations in New England. I threw myself into the work, showed up at the shelter, taught classes at the job training center, sat with people in the legal clinic and listened to their stories because I knew what it felt like to have nothing, to feel worthless, to believe that no one would ever help you. And I knew what it felt like to discover that you were wrong. My father saved me, not with his money, with his faith in me, with his belief that I was strong enough to save myself. Now it was my turn to pass that faith along. One afternoon, about 18 months after the foundation opened, I was working at the shelter when a young woman came in. She was maybe 30 years old, bruised, scared, carrying a suitcase that looked like it contained everything she owned. "I do not know if I am in the right place," she said quietly. I did not know where else to go." I took her hand. "You are exactly where you need to be." Over the next few hours, I listened to her story. The abusive husband, the escape in the middle of the night, the terror of not knowing what would happen next. It was my story. Different details, same pain. "How did you do it?" she asked me later, tears streaming down her face. "How did you start over when you had nothing?" I thought about my father, about his letter, about everything that had brought me to this moment. "I learned something important," I told her. "I learned that having nothing is not the same as being nothing. Your circumstances do not define you. Your choices do. And every day you get to choose who you want to become." She looked at me with something like hope in her eyes. "Do you really believe that?" "I do, because I lived it." I squeezed her hand. "And now, it is your turn." That night, I drove to the cemetery where my father was buried. It was late. The gates were closed. But I knew a place where the fence was low, a place I had climbed over many times when I needed to talk to him. I sat beside his headstone with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "Hey, Dad, it is me." The wind rustled through the trees. I imagined it was him listening. "I used the money, not the way I thought I would. Not for revenge or justice or any of the things I wanted when I first found out about it. I used it to help people, people like me, people who had lost everything and did not know how to start over." I poured wine into both glasses, left one on his headstone. "I think you would be proud. At least I hope you would be, because that is all I have ever wanted, to make you proud." I sipped my wine and watched the stars. "I miss you every day. I wish you could have been there to see me stand up to Derek, to see me build the foundation, to see me become the person you always believed I could be." Tears rolled down my cheeks. "But I know you were there, in your own way. You have been with me through everything, guiding me, protecting me, loving me, even when I forgot how to love myself." I touched the cold stone. "Thank you, Dad, for the money, yes. But more than that, for believing in me, for giving me the chance to find my own strength." I finished my wine and stood. I love you. I will always love you. And I promise I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve everything you gave me. I walked away without looking back. But I knew he was watching. He always had been. 3 years passed faster than I ever imagined they could. The Henry Chen Foundation grew into something I never dreamed possible. What started as a small shelter and job training center became a network of services spanning 6 states. We helped thousands of women rebuild their lives. We trained hundreds of displaced workers for new careers. We provided legal assistance to victims of fraud and abuse who had nowhere else to turn. My father's legacy lived on, not in bank accounts or stock portfolios, but in the lives we changed, in the people who walked through our doors with nothing and left with hope. I was happy, or at least I thought I was, but life has a way of testing you just when you think you have figured everything out. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon in late September. I was at the Foundation's headquarters reviewing applications for our new scholarship program when my assistant knocked on the door. "Mrs. Chen, there is someone here to see you." "I do not have any appointments this afternoon." "I know, but she says it is urgent." "She says—" My assistant hesitated. "She says she is your sister." The words did not make sense. Could not make sense. "I do not have a sister." That is what I told her. But she insists. She has documents, photographs. She says your father was her father too. My hands started shaking. I set down my pen and took a deep breath. "Send her in." The woman who walked through my door was younger than me, maybe 45. She had my father's eyes. That was the first thing I noticed. The same deep brown, the same way they crinkled at the corners, the same look of quiet intelligence that I had seen in my own mirror for 58 years. "Hello, Margaret. My name is Linda Chen. And yes, before you ask, I am telling the truth." I could not speak, could not move, just sat there staring at this stranger who had my father's face. I know this is a shock. Believe me, it was a shock for me too when I found out. She sat down across from me without being invited. "May I explain?" I nodded. It was all I could manage. "Our father had an affair, a long time ago before you were born. He was young and foolish and married to your mother, but not happy. He met my mother at a conference in Chicago. It was a brief thing, over before it really began, but my mother got pregnant." "That is impossible. My father would never—" "He did. I have the DNA test to prove it. I have letters he wrote to my mother. I have photographs of them together." She pulled a folder from her bag and set it on my desk. "I did not come here to hurt you, Margaret. I came here because I recently learned about the Foundation, about what you are doing in our father's name, and I thought you deserved to know the truth." I opened the folder with trembling hands. The photographs hit me like a physical blow. My father, young and handsome, standing with a woman I did not recognize. They were smiling, happy, in love. "Her name was Susan," Linda said quietly. "She died 3 years ago, breast cancer. On her deathbed, she told me about Henry, told me everything." "Did he know about you?" "Yes, he knew. He supported us financially for years, sent money every month until I turned 18. Then the checks stopped. My mother said he had decided it was better for everyone if we stayed separate, if his 2 lives never touched." I thought about my childhood, about the late nights my father spent at the garage, about the times he seemed distant, distracted, lost in his own thoughts. Had he been thinking about Linda, about the daughter he had abandoned? "Why did you wait until now to find me?" "Because I was angry. For a long time I hated him, hated you, hated this perfect little family he chose over us." Linda's voice cracked. "My mother struggled her whole life, worked 2 jobs just to keep a roof over our heads. And the whole time Henry Chen was sitting on millions of dollars, millions. He could have changed our lives. He chose not to. He did not live like a wealthy man. You have to understand that. I only found out about the money after he died." "I know. I read about it in the papers. The mechanic who was secretly a millionaire." She laughed bitterly. "It would be funny if it was not so tragic. I looked at the photographs again, at my father's smile, at the woman who had loved him, at the life I never knew existed. "What do you want, Linda?" "Nothing. I do not want money. I do not want a share of the foundation. I have my own life, my own family. I am a teacher in Ohio, 2 kids, decent husband." She paused. "I just wanted to meet you, to see the sister I never had, to maybe understand why our father made the choices he made. I do not understand them myself. Then we have something in common." We sat in silence for a long moment. 2 strangers connected by blood and secrets. 2 women who had been shaped by the same man in completely different ways. "Would you like to have dinner?" I heard myself ask. "I know a place nearby. We could talk, really talk." Linda smiled. It was my father's smile. I would like that very much. And that dinner changed everything. For the first time in my life, I had family, real family, someone who shared my blood and my history and my complicated feelings about the man who had made us. Linda and I talked for hours that first night, about our childhoods, about our mothers, about the different ways Henry Chen had shaped our lives. She told me about growing up poor in a small town in Indiana, about watching her mother work herself to exhaustion while wondering why her father had abandoned them, about the anger and resentment that had defined her for so long. I told her about my marriage, about Derek and Victoria and the scheme that had stolen 8 years of my life, about finding the bank card and discovering our father's secret fortune, about the revenge I had taken and the foundation I had built. "You are incredible," she said when I finished. "Everything they put you through and you came out stronger. Our father would be so proud." "Would he sometimes? I wonder if I went too far. Victoria is in prison. Derek lost everything. I ruined their lives." "They ruined their own lives. You just made sure they faced consequences." Linda reached across the table and took my hand. "Do not second-guess yourself, Margaret. You did what needed to be done." That is what I tell myself, but late at night when I cannot sleep, I wonder what if I became like them, if in trying to get justice I lost something important, something my father would have wanted me to keep. Linda was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something about our father? Something my mother told me before she died." "Please." She said he was the kindest man she ever met, that even when he ended things between them, even when he chose your mother over her, he never stopped caring. He checked on us, made sure we had what we needed, not just money. He sent letters, birthday cards. He remembered every milestone. She smiled sadly. "My mother kept all of them. I found them after she passed. I never knew. Neither did I, until the end. And when I read those letters, I realized something. Our father was not a perfect man. He made mistakes. Big ones, but he spent his whole life trying to make them right, trying to take care of the people he loved, even from a distance." She squeezed my hand. "That is what you are doing, Margaret. With the foundation, with everything you have built, you are taking care of people, making things right, just like he did." I could not hold back the tears. "I miss him so much." "I know. I miss him too. And I never even really knew him." We cried together. 2 sisters who should have grown up together, 2 daughters of a complicated man who had loved us both in his own imperfect way. "Stay in Boston," I said impulsively. "Bring your family. There is room for you at the foundation. We could use a good teacher." Linda laughed. "I cannot just uproot my entire life." "Why not? I did, and it was the best decision I ever made." She looked at me with those familiar eyes, our father's eyes. "Let me think about it." She thought about it for 3 weeks. Then she called to say she was taking the job. By Christmas, Linda and her family had moved to Boston. Her husband, Tom, took a position at a local hospital. Her kids enrolled in school just a few blocks from the foundation. And Linda became our director of educational programs, transforming the job training center into something extraordinary. For the first time in my life, I had a family Christmas. A real one with noise and chaos and children running around and too much food and arguments about whose turn it was to do the dishes. I loved every minute of it. "You are different," Linda told me one evening after the kids had gone to bed. "Since I first met you. You smile more, laugh more, you seem lighter." I feel lighter. For so long I was carrying this weight, the marriage, the betrayal, the revenge. I did not realize how heavy it was until I put it down. What changed? You. Having family again. Having someone who understands where I came from. I paused. Having someone to share our father with. Linda hugged me. "I'm glad I found you, Margaret." "I'm glad you found me too." The foundation continued to grow. With Linda running education and me handling overall operations, we expanded into new areas. Mental health services, childcare programs, small business loans for women starting over. We became a model for other organizations. Philanthropists from around the country came to study our methods. Politicians cited us as an example of how to help vulnerable populations. My father's name became synonymous with second chances. But success always comes with complications. The first sign of trouble came in early spring, about 18 months after Linda arrived. I was reviewing our financial statements when I noticed something odd, small discrepancies. Donations that did not quite add up. Expenses that seemed higher than they should be. I told myself it was nothing, just accounting errors. We had grown so fast it made sense that some numbers would get mixed up. But the discrepancies kept appearing, and they kept getting bigger. I called our CFO into my office. "Richard, I need you to explain these numbers." Richard had been with the foundation since the beginning, a quiet, competent man in his 50s who had come to us from a major accounting firm. He had always seemed completely trustworthy. He looked at the papers I showed him. His face went pale. "I can explain." "Please do." "There have been some unusual expenses related to a special project." "What special project?" He did not answer, could not meet my eyes. "Richard, what is going on?" The story came out slowly, painfully, like pulling teeth. Richard had been embezzling, not for himself, he swore, for his son, a young man with a gambling addiction who had gotten involved with dangerous people. Richard had been siphoning money from the foundation to pay off his son's debts, to keep him alive. How much? 200,000, maybe a little more. I felt sick, not because of the money. We could survive losing 200,000, but because of the betrayal. Because someone I trusted had been stealing from an organization dedicated to helping people who had nothing. "I am so sorry, Margaret. I never meant for this to happen. My son, he was going to be killed if I did not come up with the money. You should have come to me. We could have helped. I was ashamed. I did not want anyone to know." I thought about my own past, about the secrets I had kept, about the shame I had carried for so long. I understand shame, Richard, better than you know. But this, I gestured at the papers, this is criminal. You know that. I know. I will resign immediately. "I will pay back every penny. And your son. He is in rehab now, finally getting help. The debts are cleared." Richard's voice broke. "I sold everything I had, my house, my car, my retirement. It is all gone, but my son is alive, and for now that is enough." I sat back in my chair, looked at this man who had served the foundation faithfully for years, who had made a terrible decision for reasons I could almost understand. What would my father have done? I thought about his letter, about the lessons he tried to teach me, about mercy and justice and the complicated space between them. "Go home, Richard. Take some time. Let me think about what to do." "You mean you are not going to call the police?" "I did not say that. I said I need to think." He left without another word. I sat alone in my office for a long time, thinking about trust, about betrayal, about how even good people can do terrible things when they are desperate. I had done terrible things when I was desperate, had destroyed the Morrison family without mercy, had taken pleasure in watching them fall. Was I any different from Richard, really? Any better? The difference, I decided, was what you did with your second chance. I called Richard the next day. "Here is what is going to happen. You are going to resign, effective immediately. You are going to sign a promissory note agreeing to repay every dollar you took on a schedule we will work out together. and you are going to attend counseling both for yourself and with your son." "And the police?" "No police, no criminal charges, but if you miss a single payment, if you break any term of our agreement, I will turn over everything I know to the authorities. Do you understand?" The silence on the other end was long. "Why? Why would you do this for me?" "Because my father believed in second chances, and because I know what it is like to be desperate, to feel like you have no other options." I paused. "Do not make me regret this, Richard." "I will not, I promise. I will never forget this, Margaret." "Do not forget it, but do not dwell on it either. Just do better. That is all any of us can do." Linda found out about Richard a few weeks later. She was not happy. "You let him go, after what he did. I gave him a second chance. That is what we do here. We help women escaping abuse. We help workers who lost their jobs. We do not help embezzlers cover up their crimes." Richard was desperate. His son's life was in danger. He made a terrible decision, but he made it for understandable reasons. That does not make it right. No, it does not. But punishing him would not make it right either. It would just add more pain to a situation that already has too much. Linda stared at me. "You really believe that—" "I do. I spent years seeking revenge against Derek and Victoria, and yes, they deserved it. But by the end I was exhausted, empty. The satisfaction I expected never came. All that pain and nothing to show for it but more pain." I took my sister's hands. "Mercy is not weakness, Linda. Sometimes it takes more strength to forgive than to punish. Our father understood that. It took me a long time to learn it." Linda was quiet for a moment, then she nodded slowly. "You are a better person than I am." "No, I am just a person who has made enough mistakes to recognize them in others." The incident with Richard changed something in me. For years I had operated from a place of vigilance, always watching for threats, always expecting betrayal, always ready to defend myself against anyone who might try to hurt me. But that kind of life is exhausting and lonely and ultimately self-defeating. I started to let my guard down, started to trust people again. Not blindly, not recklessly, but genuinely. I gave people the benefit of the doubt, assumed good intentions, looked for the best in everyone I met. It was terrifying and liberating and absolutely necessary, because you cannot build a life on suspicion. You cannot create community from behind walls. At some point, you have to open the door and let people in, even if they might hurt you, even if they probably will. The second test came 6 months later. I was at a fundraiser for the foundation, working the room, shaking hands, giving my standard speech about second chances and new beginnings. It was exhausting work, but necessary. The foundation depended on donations from wealthy patrons, and wealthy patrons expected to be wooed. I was reaching for a glass of champagne when I heard a voice behind me. "Hello, Maggie." I turned. Derek. He looked different, older, grayer. The arrogance that had defined him for so long was gone, replaced by something quieter, something almost humble. "What are you doing here?" "I bought a ticket, made a donation. I wanted to see what you had built." "This is not the place for this conversation." "I know. I did not come to cause trouble. I just—" He took a breath. "I wanted to say something, and then I will leave. I promise." I should have had security escort him out, should have walked away without a word. But something in his eyes stopped me, a vulnerability I had never seen before. "Say it. I am sorry. I know those words are not enough. They can never be enough. But I need you to know that I am sorry for everything, for the lies, for the affair, for throwing you out, for all of it." "Derek, please, let me finish. I have been in therapy for 2 years, working through everything, trying to understand how I became the person I was. And I realized something. I was never really a person. I was just an extension of my mother, her ambitions, her schemes, her cruelty. I never learned how to be anything else." He looked down at his hands. "That is not an excuse, I know that. I made choices, bad choices, evil choices. And I hurt you more than anyone has a right to hurt another person. But I am trying to change. I am trying to become someone I am not ashamed of." I did not know what to say. This was not the Derek I had married, not the Derek who had thrown me out like garbage. This was someone else entirely. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I do not want money. I do not want forgiveness. I do not even want understanding. I just wanted you to know that I see now. I see what I did, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make amends." How can you possibly make amends for 8 years of lies? "I cannot, not directly, but I can help others. I volunteer now at a shelter for homeless men. I work with addicts, people who have hit bottom and are trying to climb back up." He smiled sadly. "I know what that feels like now." "Are you actually helping or just going through the motions?" "I am helping. At least I think I am. I found a sponsor in the program, a former addict who has been sober for 15 years. He says I am making progress, that I am not the same person I was." I studied his face, looking for the lies, the manipulation, the old Derek hiding behind a mask of sincerity. I could not find it. "I do not forgive you," I said finally. "I am not sure I ever can, but I believe that you are trying, and that counts for something. That is more than I deserve." "Yes, it is." He turned to leave, stopped. "For what it is worth, I am proud of you, Maggie. What you have built here, the lives you are changing, it is remarkable. It is my father's legacy. I am just carrying it forward." "No, it is yours, all of it. Henry Chen gave you the resources, but you made the choices. You decided how to use them, and you chose to help people instead of destroying them." He paused. "That is something I never could have done." He walked away before I could respond. I stood there for a long time, champagne glass forgotten in my hand, thinking about forgiveness, about change, about whether people really can become different than they were. I did not have answers. I was not sure I ever would, but I was starting to believe that maybe the questions themselves were the point. That night, I went home and wrote in my journal, something I had started doing after my father died, a way to process everything that happened. I wrote about Derek, about his apology, about the man he seemed to be becoming. I wrote about Richard, about his betrayal and his redemption. I wrote about Linda, about the sister I never knew I had, and I wrote about myself, about the woman I had been and the woman I was becoming. "I am not the person I was 5 years ago," I wrote. "I am not the broken woman who slept in her car. I am not the angry woman who destroyed the Morrison family. I am not even the driven woman who built the foundation. I am someone new, someone I am still learning to understand." I think that is the point of second chances, not to become who you used to be, but to become who you were always supposed to be. I closed the journal and looked out at the city lights. My father's city, my city now. Somewhere out there, Linda was putting her children to bed. Somewhere out there, Derek was helping another lost soul find their way. Somewhere out there, Richard was rebuilding his life one payment at a time. And somewhere out there, thousands of people who had walked through the doors of the Henry Chen Foundation were sleeping in safe beds, planning for futures they never thought they would have. I had done that, not alone, never alone, but I had been part of it. And for the first time in my life, I understood what my father meant in his letter. True worth comes from inside, not from money, not from success, not from revenge or justice or any of the things I thought I wanted, from kindness, from mercy, from the choice to help instead of harm, from love. I turned off the light and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, new opportunities to prove what I had learned. But tonight, I was at peace, and that was more than enough. 5 years after I walked out of First Harbor Bank with my father's fortune, I stood in the same lobby, receiving an award. The Henry Chen Humanitarian Prize, named after my father, funded by the bank he helped create, given annually to someone who had dedicated their life to helping others, and this year they were giving it to me. The irony was not lost on anyone. Walter Hayes, now 83 and long retired, but still sharp as ever, stood at the podium, introducing me to the crowd. Bankers and philanthropists and politicians filled the room. Cameras flashed, reporters scribbled notes. I thought about the first time I had walked through these doors, desperate, broke. Wearing a wrinkled dress and carrying a worn bank card I did not understand. Now I was wearing couture and carrying a speech I had written and rewritten a dozen times. Margaret Chen, Walter said, his voice still strong despite his age, is living proof that one person can change the world. Her foundation has helped over 10,000 people rebuild their lives. Her example has inspired organizations across the country. And her father, my dear friend, Henry Chen, would be prouder than words can express. The applause washed over me. I climbed the stairs to the podium, looked out at the sea of faces, and I told them the truth. 5 years ago, I had nothing. My husband had thrown me out. My in-laws had called me worthless. I was sleeping in my car, eating from dollar stores, wondering how I was going to survive. The room went silent. I found a bank card in my father's belongings, an old worn card from a man I thought was a poor mechanic. I came to this bank hoping to find maybe a few $100s, enough to buy another week of survival. I paused, let the memory wash over me. What I found instead was a fortune, and more importantly, a letter from a father who loved me enough to let me struggle, who believed that real strength comes from inside, not from money or status or the approval of others. I looked at Linda sitting in the front row with her family. She was crying. So was I. For a long time I was angry, at my ex-husband for betraying me, at his family for using me, at the world for being so cruel. I used my father's money to get revenge, to destroy the people who had hurt me. I took a breath. And when it was over, when they had lost everything and I had won everything, I felt empty. Revenge did not heal me. Justice did not fix what was broken inside. I had all the money in the world, and I was still that desperate woman sleeping in her car. The room was absolutely silent. Not a cough, not a shuffle, just 500 people holding their breath. My father's letter said to use his gift wisely, to use it kindly. It took me years to understand what he meant. He was not talking about the money, he was talking about the second chance, the opportunity to become someone new. I gripped the podium. The Henry Chen Foundation exists because I finally understood. You do not heal by hurting others. You heal by helping them. Every woman we shelter, every worker we train, every victim we defend, they are not just receiving help. They are giving me a chance to become the person my father always believed I could be. I looked directly at the cameras. So to anyone out there who is sleeping in their car tonight, who feels worthless, who believes they have nothing and are nothing, I want you to know something. You are more than your circumstances. You are more than what others have done to you. You are more than you can possibly imagine. My voice cracked. And somewhere out there, someone believes in you. Even if you cannot see them. Even if you do not know their name. Someone believes you are worth fighting for. I held up the award. This belongs to my father, to Henry Chen, the mechanic who was secretly a genius, the poor man who was secretly a millionaire, the humble man who was secretly a giant. Tears streamed down my face. Dad, if you are listening, I hope I made you proud. Everything I am, everything I have become, it is because of you. I walked off the stage to a standing ovation, but I barely heard it. I was thinking about my father, about his workshop, about the smell of engine grease and the sound of his laughter and the way he used to tuck me in at night. I was thinking about how much I missed him and how grateful I was that his love had found a way to save me even from beyond the grave. The reception afterward was a blur of handshakes and congratulations. Everyone wanted to talk to me, to take pictures with me, to tell me how inspiring my story was. I smiled and nodded and said the right things, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept thinking about what came next. The foundation was thriving. Linda was handling operations beautifully. We had enough funding for years. Everything was running smoothly without my constant involvement. So what was I supposed to do with the rest of my life? I was 60 years old, healthy, wealthy beyond anything I had ever imagined. But for the first time since finding my father's card, I did not have a goal, did not have a mission, did not have something to fight for or against, just empty time stretching ahead of me. You look lost. I turned. A man I did not recognize was standing beside me, tall, silver-haired, kind eyes. "Excuse me. I have been watching you work the room, smiling at everyone, saying the right things, but your eyes keep drifting to the window, like you are planning your escape." I laughed despite myself. Am I that obvious? Only to someone who has done the same thing 1,000 times. He extended his hand. "James Wright. I run a foundation in Seattle. We do similar work to yours." "I know who you are. The Wright Foundation has been doing incredible things with homeless veterans, as has the Chen Foundation with displaced women. I have been following your work for years." He smiled, "and trying to work up the courage to introduce myself." "Why would you need courage?" "Because you are Margaret Chen, Philanthropist of the Year, Humanitarian Award winner, the woman who turned personal tragedy into a national movement." He shrugged. "That is somewhat intimidating." "I am also a 60-year-old woman who was having a panic attack about what to do with the rest of my life. How is that for intimidating?" James laughed. It was a good laugh, warm and genuine. "I know that feeling. I sold my company 10 years ago, thought I would retire, play golf, travel. Instead, I spent 6 months staring at walls and wondering why I felt so empty." "What did you do?" "Started the foundation. Found a new purpose." He paused. "But lately I have been feeling that emptiness again, like I have done everything I can do alone, like maybe it is time for something different." "Something different like what?" "Like a partnership, a collaboration between your foundation and mine. We could do so much more together than either of us can do separately." I studied his face, looking for the angle, the hidden agenda, the manipulation. I found nothing but sincerity. "That is a significant proposal to make at a cocktail party." "I know. Bad timing. But I have learned that when you meet someone remarkable, you should not wait. Life is too short for caution." "You think I am remarkable? I think you are extraordinary, and not because of the award or the foundation or the money, because of how you got here, because of what you overcame, because you took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into something beautiful." No one had ever talked to me like that. Not Derek, who had only seen me as a means to an end, not the bankers and donors who saw me as a source of funding, not even Linda, who loved me but was still getting to know me. I do not know what to say. "Say you will have dinner with me tomorrow night. We can talk about the partnership. Or we can talk about anything else. Or we can not talk at all." He smiled. "I just want to spend more time with you. Is that too forward?" I thought about all the reasons to say no. I was too old for romance, too damaged, too complicated. Then I thought about my father, about how he had hidden from life, had kept his wealth secret, had denied himself and his family so much because he was afraid of what money might do to them. I did not want to hide any more. "Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, there is an Italian place on Newberry Street, Lucia's. Best pasta in Boston." James grinned. "It is a date." I spent the next day in a state I had not experienced in decades. Nervous, excited, terrified. I tried on 6 different outfits before Linda walked in and caught me staring at myself in the mirror. "What is going on? You look like a teenager before prom." "I have a date." Linda's mouth fell open. "A date? You with who?" "James Wright. He runs a foundation in Seattle." "The James Wright. The billionaire tech guy who gives away half his money every year. That is the one." Linda sat down heavily on my bed. "Okay, tell me everything. How did this happen? When did this happen? Why did I not know about this?" I told her about the conversation at the reception, about his proposal for a partnership, about the way he looked at me like I was something special. "And you said yes, just like that." "Why would I not?" "Because you have not dated anyone since Derek. Because you have spent 5 years building walls around yourself. Because—" Linda stopped. "Actually, forget all that. You said yes. That is amazing." "I am terrified." "Of course you are. Dating is terrifying at any age, but especially at our age when we have so much history, so many scars. What if it goes badly? What if he is not who he seems? What if I get hurt again?" Linda took my hands. What if it goes well? What if he is exactly who he seems? What if you find happiness? I had not let myself think about happiness. Not really. Contentment, yes. Satisfaction, yes. But happiness, the kind of happiness that comes from loving someone and being loved in return, that felt too dangerous to hope for. I do not know how to do this anymore. I do not know how to let someone in. Nobody does. We all just fake it until it feels real. Linda smiled. But you are the bravest person I know, Margaret. You survived Derek. You built an empire. You changed thousands of lives. If anyone can figure out how to love again, it is you. I hugged her, held on tight. Thank you. For everything. For finding me. For staying. For being my sister. Thank you for letting me in. That was the hard part. And you did it beautifully. Dinner with James was nothing like I expected. I expected awkwardness, stilted conversation, the kind of careful dancing that happens when two strangers try to impress each other. Instead, we talked for 4 hours about our childhoods, our failures, our dreams, our fears. We talked about losing spouses and finding purpose and the strange loneliness of success. We talked about my father. He sounds remarkable, James said, hiding all that wealth, living simply, making sure you could find your own way. I was angry about it for a long time, all those years of struggling when he could have made everything easier. And now I understand. The struggle made me who I am. If I had known about the money, I never would have married Derek, never would have been tested, never would have discovered what I was capable of. So you are grateful for all of it? I thought about the question, really thought about it. Yes, even the pain, even the betrayal, because it led me here, to the foundation, to Linda, to this moment sitting across from you. James reached across the table and took my hand. I am glad it led you here too. We dated for 6 months, slowly, carefully, learning each other's rhythms and boundaries and scars. He flew to Boston twice a month. I flew to Seattle twice a month. We talked every day, sometimes for hours, sometimes just to say goodnight. I told him everything, about Derek, about Victoria, about the revenge I had taken and the guilt I still carried. He did not judge, did not try to fix, just listened. You did what you had to do, he said one night. They would have destroyed you if you had not fought back. But did I go too far? Victoria is dying in prison. Derek lost everything. Victoria made her choices. Derek made his. You did not create their problems. You just made sure they faced consequences. That sounds like justification. It sounds like truth. There is a difference between revenge and justice. Revenge is about making yourself feel better. Justice is about making sure wrong does not win. He paused. What you did was not revenge, Margaret. It was survival. I wanted to believe him. Most days I did. But late at night when I could not sleep, I still wondered. 1 year after our first date, James asked me to marry him. We were at my father's grave, a strange place for a proposal, but somehow perfect. He knew how much my father meant to me, knew that any future we built together would have to include the man who had made me who I am. I know this is unconventional, he said, kneeling on the grass. But I wanted Henry to be here for this. I wanted him to know that I will spend the rest of my life taking care of his daughter. I looked at my father's headstone, at the name carved into the stone, at the dates that marked the beginning and end of a life that had given me so much. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I will marry you. James slipped the ring on my finger. It was simple, elegant, nothing like the ostentatious diamond Derek had given me all those years ago. I love you, Margaret Chen. I love you too, James Wright. We stood there together, my future husband and I, in front of the man who had shaped my past, and for the first time in my life, I felt like all the pieces were finally in the right place. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. We held it at the foundation in the community room where so many people had found their second chances. Linda was my maid of honor. Her kids were the flower girl and ring bearer. Walter Hayes walked me down the aisle since my father could not. "Henry would be so happy today," Walter whispered as we stood at the back of the room. "He always worried about you, worried that you were too gentle for this world, too trusting. He would be glad to know you found someone worthy of you." "I am not the same person I was when he died." "No, you are better, stronger, kinder." He patted my hand. "He would be proud, Margaret, so very proud." The ceremony was simple. Traditional vows, a few readings, nothing fancy. But when James said, "I do," when he looked at me with eyes full of love and promise, I felt something I had not felt in decades. Hope, real hope, for the future, for happiness, for a life filled with more than just survival. After the wedding, I found a quiet moment to slip away. I went to my office where my father's photograph hung on the wall. The same photograph I had seen at First Harbor Bank all those years ago. 4 men on opening day. My father young and handsome, grinning from ear to ear. "I did it, Dad," I said to the photo. "I found someone. Someone good. Someone real." The photograph did not answer, of course. But I felt something. A warmth. A presence. Like my father was standing beside me, smiling his approval. "I understand now. Everything you did, everything you sacrificed, you were not hiding from life. You were protecting me, giving me the chance to become who I was supposed to be." Tears rolled down my cheeks. "I wish you were here. I wish you could meet James. I wish you could see Linda and her kids. I wish you could see what your legacy has become." I touched the photograph gently. "But I know you are watching. Somehow, somewhere you are watching. And that is enough." James found me there a few minutes later. "I thought I might find you here." "Just saying hello to my father." He put his arm around me, looked at the photograph. "He was a handsome man." "Yes, he was, inside and out." "You have his eyes." "Everyone says that. Linda has them too. It is the one thing we both inherited." James pulled me close. "Are you ready to go back to the party? Your sister is threatening to give an embarrassing speech." I laughed. "Let her. She has earned the right." We walked out together, hand in hand, into our new life. The years that followed were the happiest I had ever known. James and I merged our foundations, created something bigger than either of us could have built alone. We helped hundreds of thousands of people, opened shelters and training centers across the country, became a model for charitable organizations worldwide. But more importantly, we built a life. We traveled, saw the world, visited places my father had always wanted to go. I sent him postcards in my mind describing everything. We welcomed Linda's grandchildren, watched them grow, became the aunt and uncle who spoiled them rotten. We spent quiet evenings at home, reading, talking, just being together, and we were happy. Genuinely, completely, impossibly happy. When the news came, I was 72 years old. The doctors said it was cancer, aggressive, too advanced for treatment. "How long?" I asked. 6 months, maybe less. I went home and told James. We cried together, held each other, faced the truth that our time was running out. "I am not afraid," I told him. "I have had a beautiful life, more beautiful than I ever imagined." "I am afraid," he admitted. "I do not know how to be without you." "You will be okay. You have the foundation. You have Linda and her family. You have so many people who love you." "But I do not have you." I took his face in my hands. "You will always have me. In every person we helped, in every life we changed, in every second chance we gave, I will be there, always." The last few months were hard. My body failed slowly, piece by piece, but my spirit stayed strong. I made sure everything was in order. The foundation was set to continue for generations. Linda would take over leadership. James would handle the finances. The mission would live on. On my last day, I asked to be taken to my father's grave. They set up a chair beside his headstone. wrapped me in blankets. Let me sit there as the sun set over Boston. Linda sat beside me. James stood behind his hand on my shoulder. "I am ready," I said. "I am ready to see him again." "Tell him we love him," Linda whispered. "Tell him thank you. Tell him I will take care of his daughter until we meet again," James added. I smiled, closed my eyes. "I will tell him everything." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt my father's hand reach out to take mine. The funeral was held at the foundation, just like my wedding. Thousands came to pay their respects. People I had helped, people I had never met, people whose lives had been touched by the legacy of Henry Chen and the daughter who carried it forward. James spoke first, then Linda, then a stream of people who wanted to share what Margaret Chen had meant to them. The last speaker was a young woman, 30 years old. She had come through the foundation 10 years earlier homeless and hopeless. Now she was a lawyer specializing in helping abuse victims. "Margaret Chen saved my life," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Not just by giving me shelter and training, but by believing in me when I did not believe in myself, by showing me that my past did not define my future, by proving that second chances are real." She looked at the crowd. "She told me once that the best way to heal is to help others heal, that the best way to honor your pain is to prevent others from feeling it. I have tried to live by those words every day, and I will continue to live by them until I take my last breath." She paused. Margaret Chen is gone, but her legacy lives on, in every person she helped, in every life she touched, in every second chance she gave. And she lifted her head. "She taught us that we are not our circumstances. We are not what others have done to us. We are what we choose to become." The crowd rose in a standing ovation, and somewhere in a place beyond time and space, Margaret Chen smiled. She was home, sitting beside her father in his old workshop, just like she had as a child. The smell of engine grease hung in the air. The sound of his laughter filled the room. "I did it, Dad," she said. "I used your gift wisely. I used it kindly." Henry Chen looked at his daughter with eyes full of love. "I know, Maggie girl. I watched the whole thing, every moment, every triumph, every tear. Are you proud of me?" He pulled her into a hug. Prouder than words can say. They sat together in comfortable silence, two souls reunited at last. "What happens now?" Margaret asked. "Now we rest. We watch over the people we love. We wait for them to join us when their time comes." "That sounds peaceful." "It is." Henry squeezed his daughter's hand. "But first, there is someone who wants to meet you." Margaret looked up. A woman stood in the doorway, older than Margaret remembered from the photographs, but unmistakable. "Mom." "Hello, sweetheart. I have been waiting for you." Margaret ran to her mother, embraced her for the first time in 40 years. "I missed you so much." "I missed you too, baby girl, but I was with you every step of the way." The three of them stood together, father, mother, daughter, united at last. And Margaret Chen finally understood. This was not the end. It was the beginning, the true beginning, the one she had been waiting for all along. Back on Earth, the Henry Chen Foundation continued its work. James lived another 8 years, faithful to his promise to take care of Margaret's legacy. Linda led the foundation until she was 80, then passed it to her daughter, who passed it to her daughter. Generations later, the Chen name still meant something, still represented hope and second chances, and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to become who they were meant to be. And in every shelter, every training center, every legal clinic, a photograph hung on the wall, a young woman with kind eyes and a determined smile. Below it, a simple plaque. Margaret Chen. She taught us that true worth comes from inside, that we are not our circumstances, that second chances are real. And underneath that, the words her father had written so many years ago. "You come from giants. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise." The story of Margaret Chen was over, but her legacy would live forever. Because some gifts never stop giving, some love never stops growing, and some second chances change the world.